In this video, I'm going to show you multiple scenarios for safely stopping resource guarding and how to create low conflict with items of interest. That way your dog doesn't get to where they just swallow things quickly or they start to fight you on it is the moment that they get something in their mouth. It's really important that we act like we don't really care that much. And so here are some ideas for that. So when your dog gets something you don't want, step on the end of the leash. I pulled him over. Maybe he would drop it. He didn't. So I'm just going to do pressure straight up. Now I have a treat in my hand. Notice his feet are not off the ground. It's just pressure straight up in the air. And then I use food to kind of get his attention. But I don't give him the food yet. I stay on pressure until he sits or at least backs off. Now my leg is in the middle while I pick up the item that he dropped. Then he gets the treat. And then I can put him in place and put the item away. So I repeat, step on the leash, bring him over, because that can sometimes cause them to just drop it. Look, consistent leash pressure straight up in the air, just a little uncomfortable, but his feet aren't off the ground. Then I got his attention to speed it up a little bit with food. Now I shorten my leash, like I grabbed closer. That way he couldn't reach the item. And there you go. You put the item away, drop the leash, go back to doing what you were doing. Very low energy, low conflict way of managing this issue to make sure it doesn't get worse. Now let's say my leash is twisted up, because that's really common. It doesn't matter. Look, I go straight up in the air. He's like, what is that? Then I fix the leash quickly when he doesn't look like, he just looks surprised. He's like, what is that? Have him sit for a piece of food. Wait till he sits because he gets a bit snippy. And then I just release him to be able to get the toy again. And the release word is break. So just to show this again, this time the leash pressure doesn't surprise him, so he keeps a hold of the toy. So I need food to speed this up. Once he sits, I relaxed my leash that's around his tummy that feels weird. I went ahead and gave him a piece of food because I don't have any leverage with the leash because it's around his stomach. So see, I'm using food, look, and then I grab the leash properly. Leash is relaxed, like there's slack. I'm not pulling it anymore. Then I pick up the item. All right, so there's a couple of scenarios with a twisted up leash. Now this one was definitely harder the first time we did it. You'll see why. But I don't go for his face. It's so important. I go for the end of the leash. And look, he's fighting me. That's why that's why it looked like I was holding him up on the slip leash. I wasn't. He was fighting me, trying to like get his head down. So it was crucial to kind of use a little treat focus, but then he got snappy. Why? Because he's really aroused. Okay, so I just keep slip leash pressure on till he relaxes and focuses, and then he's a piece of cake. I'm just showing this again because it was a hard one. So I let him really get into it.
Drop it.
That's where he fights me, by putting his head. What he's doing is he's trying to force his head down, and it makes the paws come up. But as soon as he relaxes and focuses a bit, like you can kind of feel it through the lead, he'll just kind of lift his head up. He won't be trying to force his head down to the ground. As soon as that happens, I relax the leash. Now, the awesome thing about this is he got so good so quickly at understanding that this was a game, that it was a good game, that it was better to have the food than to have the paper. All right, what I did different in this one is step on the leash, and I pulled him over to me to get him away from the rest of it, then redirected him onto place. Place is really solid, really confident with him, so just redirected him to a boundary, like a visible boundary for the puppy, and then I was able to pick everything else up and no problem. So that redirection can be really helpful to just kind of pull him over, still with a little tension on the leash, and redirect him. So hopefully that made sense. Those are safe ways to manage those situations without making them worse. And there are also other exercises we're going to give you on your next owner lesson to practice at home. But the main thing is, if he's out of crate, you guys need to have food on you. It's so important, especially at his age. It's very common that you need to have like a treat pouch on you at all times so you can practice this kind of scenario. If you don't, fake it. Just completely fake it. Pretend you have food, and then go and actually get a piece of food once he settles down and disengages. The main thing is never head towards his mouth. Always go towards the end of the leash. I like a Mendota 3/8 of an inch slip leash that is 6 foot long. You could also do this on flat collar. I'll leave you with this final thing. If he picks something up and runs, don't chase him and resist the urge to say no. Try not to say no. And even when you're walking towards him calmly, try to not have your hips directed directly at his head. Kind of walk at an angle like it's not a big deal, and go towards the part of the leash that's furthest away from him.